All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different, maybe even a bit startling. We're going to break down a profound philosophical critique of human progress. Basically, we're opening up the ultimate accounting book. We're going to audit the true cost of our monumental achievements as a species, and we're basing this entirely on some absolutely fascinating source material that basically forces us to look at the unvarnished ledger of human history. So, the text we're analyzing starts off by painting civilization as this divine, almost untouchable achievement. It echoes that famous soliloquy from Hamlet, you know the one, framing our progress as the ultimate cathedral of human ingenuity. It celebrates how we took rivers and turned them into wheels, how we drew fire from flint and just completely established dominion over nature. It's that glorious illusion of progress that, let's be honest, we all really like to believe in. But right after that, the source text completely shatters that illusion. It pivots from this thesis of divine achievement straight into a really brutal antithesis. It contrasts our lofty ideals, all that beautiful marble, the soaring anthems, the declarations of liberty, with the terrifying inconsistency and, frankly, the violence lurking in what the author calls the cellar of human history. The argument here is that we basically build our glorious cathedrals right on top of unmarked graves. We carve the word liberty into the stone while desperately trying to hide the bloody chisel we used to do it. And that brings us to the core mystery we're investigating today. If we strip away the poetry, if we just ignore the marble and the anthems for a minute and look directly at the cold, hard ledger of human history, who actually paid for all this progress? Is the ultimate cost of civilization just too high for the result? Well, let's open up the books and find out. Moving into part one of the source material, the human toll. Look, the physical infrastructure of modern society didn't just build itself. When we look purely at the staggering historical body count required to lay the foundations for global trade and all our modern comforts, the text makes a harsh point. Progress was largely financed by the extraction of human life. We're talking about 12.5 million human beings ripped from Africa during the transatlantic slave trade. We're looking at an estimated 50 million indigenous lives lost during the colonization of the Americas, which is a staggering 90% demographic collapse, by the way. And of course, the Industrial Revolution, right? It was powered by a heavily exploited working class, including children choking on black lung and dying in factory accidents. Historically speaking, populations were simply treated as cheap capital to be consumed. And it's not like that historical toll just stopped in the distant past. It culminated right in the 20th century, where the ultimate manifestation of industrial state power resulted in over 100 million deaths across 2 world wars. So, the text argues, our modern cathedral is quite literally built over a mass grave. Which leads us to part 2. Who actually enjoys the fruits of all this? Now, you might be wondering, okay, has this structure fundamentally changed today? Have we evolved past this? Let's take a look at who actually gets to hang out in the luxury suites of this modern cathedral right now. And the stark reality of modern global inequality is, well, it's pretty striking. Think about where you might fall on this tier. Only the top 10% of the world captures roughly 75% of all the wealth. They're the ones truly enjoying the uninhibited fruits of civilization. Meanwhile, the bottom 50%, literally the foundation keeping the whole machine running through sweatshops, undocumented agricultural labor, dangerous mining, they survive on a mere 2% of global wealth. Over 700 million people within that bottom tier live in extreme poverty. So the suffering hasn't vanished. The text notes it's just been outsourced. This brings us to part 3, cracks in the foundation. Beyond that vast inequality, the source material highlights some recent systemic risk assessments. They point to 3 severe, potentially fatal design flaws that are currently threatening the stability of civilization itself. The first crack is flaw A, extreme efficiency over resilience. We've built these highly complex, just-in-time delivery networks. You probably noticed them during recent global shipping shortages. They're incredibly efficient for generating profit, but they're so rigid, they lack structural buffers. Because of that, a single regional shock could halt global production. For example, a disruption to a few fabrication plants in Taiwan could freeze global tech entirely. Or a climate volatility hitting a couple of key breadbasket regions could trigger widespread famine. Then we have the second crack, flaw B, ecological bankruptcy. The text argues that we basically treat the planet as both an infinite extraction site and an infinite trash can. And the biophysical floor that's holding us all up, it's literally cracking. With severe risks to ocean currents, like the Gulf Stream, and the rapid loss of our topsoil, the foundation is sinking. You just simply cannot sustain a high-tech economy if your baseline agricultural systems fail to produce calories. And finally, there's flaw C, epistemic and institutional decay. We are seeing a rapid decline of trust in shared facts and institutions, right at the exact moment we're developing hyper-advanced, incredibly dangerous tools like AI and gene editing. The text paints a really vivid picture here. It says we're essentially trying to fly a hyper-advanced spaceship while the entire crew is fighting over the manual, completely unable to coordinate on massive transnational survival problems. Now for part 4, the invisible bill. Just when you think we've reached the bottom of this historical ledger, the source material forces us to open the darkest door of all. We have to calculate the cost paid by the non-human inhabitants of our biosphere. And looking at the global mammal biomass distribution on Earth today, it is absolutely shocking. We've completely replaced the vibrant, chaotic diversity of wildlife with a standardized, human-controlled monoculture. Think about this. Humans make up 36%, our livestock makes up 60%, and all wild mammals, literally every single elephant, whale, bear, and deer combined, make up just 4% of the Earth's mammalian biomass. To sustain our modern consumption, over 100 billion animals are slaughtered globally every single year. And the text is super quick to point out that 99% of them live and die in the brutal confinement of industrialized factory farms. We are treating billions of sentient beings, creatures with proven emotional depth and the capacity to feel pain, purely as economic inputs, just machine parts. The ecological collateral damage here is just immense. We've lost 83% of all wild mammals since human civilization began. We have systematically commoditized nature. We chop down pristine ecosystems like the Amazon, but we don't do it to feed humans directly. We do it to grow soy and corn, 70% of which is fed right back into that highly inefficient meat-generating machine. The text argues that we're basically acting like an apex predator that is completely forgotten it's also a parasite, rapidly killing its own host. Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, A Broken Moral Calculus. When we take a step back and view this massive cosmic scale of exploitation, that original poem's attempt to justify civilization's horrors through its beautiful art and high philosophy, well, it takes on a very different tone. The source material impartially concludes its analysis by suggesting something pretty heavy. It says that clinging to a beautifully written speech or a soaring cathedral to justify a mountain of human bodies and a ruined biosphere is staggering narcissism. It exposes the intellectual blind spot of valuing the ability to beautifully lament our tragedy over the basic duty to simply not cause it in the first place. If a trillion screams of pain are the required price of admission just so we can have our symphonies, then our moral calculus is fundamentally broken. So this leaves us standing in the cold light of reality, stripped of our marble and our anthems, with one final haunting question about the blueprint of human progress. Are we doomed to be a malignant force, or is there an actual way to live on this earth that doesn't require a mountain of victims to sustain it? What do you think? I really hope this explainer gave you a new lens through which to view the world around us. Keep questioning and keep learning.